Some souls sing with a rawness that the world rarely understands. In this episode, we revisit the lonely hotel room where a fierce, untamed voice met its sudden and haunting end. The Janis Joplin case opens. This is Memento Mori.
Won't you spare me over another?
Today we are opening a file that it really sits at this intersection of just incredible artistic brilliance and profound personal tragedy. We're talking, of course, about the final hours of Janis Lynn Joplin.
The voice of a generation, truly.
Absolutely. An explosive, blues-drenched voice. And her death at the landmark motor hotel in Los Angeles, it's still one of the most haunting footnotes in all of rock history.
It really is.
So our mission today is to go, beyond the simple tabloid summary of her death.
Right.
We've compiled accounts, investigative notes, forensic analysis, all to really understand the complex factors that led to that official ruling of accidental overdose.
And there are so many layers to it, it's not straightforward at all.
We want to look at the personal struggle, the creative high she was on, and these unique external forces that all collided on October 4th, 1970. Joplin's impact is, it's just undeniable. She wasn't just the singer.
No.
She was a seismic shift. She basically took the raw, guttural power of traditional blues singers, think Big Mama Thornton,
Yeah.
and she fused it with the whole psychedelic rock and folk thing of the 1960s. She gave permission for female singers to be raw and loud and messy.
You hear it in every note. Piece of my heart, summertime. It's pure intensity.
And by the late 60s, she was one of the biggest stars in the world. But that fame, it never quite managed to fix the pain underneath.
That's the profound paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what we need to unpack first. You have this woman on stage with this superhuman confidence and energy, but our sources, they all detail a private life just marked by this immense insecurity.
It wasn't just stage fright, it was deeper, a lifelong struggle for acceptance, really.
And that started early, right?
Oh, yeah. It originated way back in her life in Port Arthur, Texas. She was ridiculed, for being different, for her bohemian style, for her ambitions.
She felt like an outsider.
Completely. And that feeling, that sense of alienation, it followed her right to the peak of her success. So the substances, the alcohol, and later the heroin, they became a way to manage that.
A coping mechanism.
A tool to sort of bridge the gap between Janis, the global superstar, and Janis, the, isolated young woman in a hotel room.
It's so important to stress that because it wasn't just some casual part of the rock lifestyle for her.
No, it was deeply ingrained. But, and this is a huge but, sources also highlight this massive professional shift happening right before she died that really complicates that idea of a downward spiral.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the album Pearl.
Yes. The last few weeks of her life were defined by this incredible creative focus. She was recording Pearl with the Full Tilt Boogie Band at Sunset Sound Studios.
And everyone around her noticed a change.
A huge change. By September 1970, the band, her management, they all said she was motivated, she was happy, she felt she was doing the best work of her entire career.
They were recording so quickly. She nailed the vocals for tracks like A Woman Left Lonely and, of course, Me and Bobby McGee.
That creative confidence, that forward-looking energy, it just immediately challenges any theory that her death was intentional.
She had too much to live for, too much invested in this project.
That professional commitment is just vital context. And she was also, actively trying to stabilize her life. Our sources note she was trying to control or even stop her heroin use during this period.
So she's fighting this battle while creating a masterpiece.
Exacts.
Which makes the chronology of that final weekend all the more tragic. Let's walk through the final hours leading up to the discovery that Sunday.
Okay, so the last known interaction was Saturday, October 3rd. She'd been at the studio that day, working late.
Then she went back to her hotel.
She returned to her lodging, the landmark Motor Hotel in Hollywood. Which, by the way, this was not some glamorous place.
Right.
It was known for being a bit transient, popular with musicians, people on the edge of the industry.
She was in room 105, and by all accounts, nothing seemed outwardly wrong when she got back that night.
No. But the next morning, Sunday, October 4th, the studio was expecting her.
And she's a no-show.
She doesn't show up. And her manager, John Cook, he gets worried. This wasn't typical for her, not with how committed she'd been.
So he goes to check on her.
He drives to the hotel, finds her car still in the lot, and after getting a key from the front desk, he enters room 105.
And what he saw, it provided immediate but also confusing details for the investigators. Describe that scene.
Well, Joplin was found collapsed on the floor.
Okay.
She had fallen right next to the nightstand with her arms sort of outstretched. The positioning was unnatural. It suggested a very sudden, violent physical event.
Like a convulsion or just an immediate blackout?
Exactly. Something that caused her to fall backward and maybe hit the furniture on the way down.
What other details were there? What else helped them piece together what happened?
The area right near her body had these small, everyday items, a pack of cigarettes, some loose change.
Like she was just in the middle of a routine moment.
Precisely. A routine moment that was violently interrupted. But the key piece of evidence, the thing that instantly dismissed a lot of sensational theories, was her wallet.
The money.
The money. Her wallet was recovered, and it had $1,400 in cash inside.
Which is a lot of money in 1970.
A substantial amount. And the fact that it was still there immediately ruled out robbery as a motive.
Okay, so you combine that with no forced entry, no signs of a struggle.
And police quickly dismissed the possibility of foul play. They started focusing very quickly on an accident.
But the immediate evidence for an overdose wasn't, like, overwhelming right there at the scene, was it?
No, it wasn't, which is why the autopsy became so critical. The final determination really rested on the forensic evidence.
And this was handled by the LA Medical Examiner's Office.
Yes, and the tests themselves were done under the eye of Dr. Thomas Noguchi.
The coroner into the stars.
That's the one. He handled autopsies for Marilyn Monroe, Robert Kennedy. His reputation added immense weight to whatever the final ruling was going to be.
So what did Dr. Noguchi's team find? What was the definitive cause of death?
The toxicology report found a lethal concentration of heroin in her system. The official ruling was unequivocal. Accidental overdose due to heroin.
But as we mentioned, understanding why that specific dose was lethal, that's where the science gets just devastatingly tragic.
It is.
Because it connects right back to her efforts to quit the drug in the weeks before.
This is the absolute crux of it. Heroin users develop tolerance, right? The body adapts. It requires larger and larger doses to get the same effect.
Or just to feel normal.
Or just to function, yeah. But if a user significantly cuts back or stops completely, even for a short period, that tolerance drops drastically and very, very quickly.
And because she was so committed to the Pearl album and had cut back her intake, her body just wasn't protected anymore.
Exactly. She had essentially reset her system. So the dose she took that night, which might have been routine for her a month earlier, was suddenly profoundly toxic.
Her body just couldn't handle it.
It lacked the defenses. The substance instantly overwhelmed her system, leading to respiratory failure and death. It was a deadly dose taken by a body that was, in its own way, trying to recover.
The heartbreaking irony is that the step towards sobriety is what ultimately made the final relapse fatal.
It is.
And that alone is tragic enough. But our deep dive shows there was this other major external factor.
Yeah.
This thing investigators started calling the bad batch theory.
Right. And this really elevates the tragedy from a personal accident to something more like external circumstance, a fatal lottery.
What do you mean?
Investigators realized pretty quickly that Janis Joplin was not an isolated incident in Los Angeles in those first few days of October 1970.
There were other overdose fatalities around the same time?
Yes. Several other deaths in the LA area all confirmed heroin overdoses, all within a span of about 48 to 72 hours.
Wow.
And that immediately told the police and Noguchi's team that they weren't dealing with isolated cases. They were dealing with a shared supply issue.
And what did that shared issue turn out to be?
Through source tracing and investigation, they determined that all the victims, including Joplin, were believed to have gotten their drugs from the same local dealer.
And the problem was the heroin itself.
The problem was an unusually high purity batch of heroin circulating in the city. See, heroin is almost always cut or diluted by dealers.
To increase their profit, to stretch it out.
Exactly. But the theory is that this specific batch was either sold completely undiluted or just very, very poorly diluted. So a dose that someone expected to be, say, 10% pure heroin might have actually been 50% pure or even higher.
And for someone whose tolerance was already lowered, like Joplin's, that's an instant death sentence.
An instant uncontrollable poison. She wasn't necessarily choosing to take a massive dose. She was a victim of a lethal error made by a dealer somewhere up the supply chain.
It adds this powerful layer of tragic chance to her story. She was just unlucky enough to get that contaminated supply at the exact moment her own biological tolerance was at its absolute lowest.
It connects her personal struggle directly to a random external threat. And it's another reason why suicide was so definitively ruled out. She wasn't seeking death. She was seeking respite from her pain, and that decision was fatally hijacked by a contaminated product.
And just to close the loop on that, let's solidify why those other theories were dismissed. The murder theory was ruled out because of the cash, lack of struggle.
Right.
But on the suicide question, how firm were the people closest to her?
They were adamant. John Cook, the members of Full Tilt Boogie, they all talked about how excited she was. She was planning to record a specific vocal track that next Monday.
She was making plans for the future.
She'd even bought a gift for a band member that Saturday. Everything pointed toward a future she intended to live. Her behavior was just completely inconsistent with someone planning to end their life. It was a perfect storm.
A perfect storm of chemical and biological misfortune. And her death. So sudden, so final, it became symbolic of the end of an era. I mean, 1970 was a devastating turning point for music.
It absolutely was. The deaths of these towering figures in such quick succession. It really felt like the party was over, that all the freedom and experimentation of the 60s had come at this astronomical cost.
And of course, the grim timing secured her place in that notorious group.
The 27 Club, it's impossible to discuss Joplin without mentioning it.
She died just 16 days after Jimi Hendrix.
Also, age 27, their deaths, and then Jim Morrison a year later. It created this cultural mythos around the age of 27. The age where genius and self-destruction seemed to collide most violently.
For Joplin, it was the final heartbreaking confirmation of the pressures that came with her specific brand of fame.
But the story, her narrative, it doesn't end in Room 105. It continues with the music she left behind.
That's the bittersweet triumph, isn't it? The Pearl album.
It was released posthumously just 4 months later, January 71, and it became the definitive statement of her career. It topped the charts, sold millions.
And it had the biggest hit of her life on it, Me and Bobby McGee.
Which went to number 1. It's this extraordinary, haunting echo of the power she possessed. A final performance that, continues to resonate today.
It really ensures that her legacy isn't defined just by the circumstances of her end, but by the music and that raw spirit she gifted the world. But those circumstances, the fragility of that genius colliding with addiction, decreased tolerance, and that fatal bad bash make, her final moments, a really profound and cautionary example of chance and tragedy. Thank you for listening. To ensure you don't miss the next file in the Memento Mori collection, please like this video and subscribe. Until we meet again in the next dark story.